Good afternoon, everyone. I decided that based on last rehearsal, where I still felt like we were struggling a little bit with our rhythmic counting in that specific section in Fire that we worked on for a good amount of time, it might be beneficial for me to make a video for you all to try and see if I can explain it again to all of you and try and rehearse a couple of different things to give you a little bit of a better understanding of how to count those rhythms in your part. So if you happen to have your part with you, go ahead and take that out right now. Otherwise, rhythmically, I'm going to be putting everything on screen that you're going to need to be able to see. And there are various groups that I'm breaking this down into, so feel free to skip around in the video to find which group you in particular belong to in order to basically cut out anything that you don't need to watch. So this is going to be broken down between measures 25 and 41, and it's going to be broken down into 3 groups for each 8 measure section. So the first section that we're going to be looking at is measures 25 to 33. And the first group we're going to be working with is going to be the trumpet, French horn, alto sax, and percussion 2 group. Now, the good thing about this is that this part is actually 4 measures repeated 2 times, with the alto saxes entering the second time around to join in on the fun. So the thing about this, though, is just like all the other rhythms in this piece in particular, there's nothing too crazy rhythmically. It's just that everything is going to be landing on a downbeat or an upbeat, but it's pretty sporadic as to where that actually happens, which makes the counting of it fairly difficult. So the first thing that we're going to do is I'm going to put up the counting up here on the screen for you, and it's going to just give you an understanding of how to go about and do this. So if I were to go ahead and count this while keeping a steady beat for you, if I could, I'm just going to go ahead and throw on a metronome so that you can go ahead and listen to this all together at a fairly slow tempo. And what we're going to do is I'm going to do it at 3 tempos. We're going to do it at a slow tempo, a medium tempo, and a tempo that it actually is written at, which for those of you that would like to know, if it's not marked in your parts, is 144, or quarter note equals 144. So we're going to start about here, and I'm going to go ahead and start the metronome, which hopefully you can hear. And this is going to be counted as follows. So if I count you in, it'll be 1, 2, ready, and go. 1, and 4, 3 and 4, and 1, and 4, 3 and 4, and 1. And at that point we have hit measure 33. So if you want to go back and try it at that tempo again, go right ahead, just rewind the video. And now I'm going to go ahead and take it at roughly a medium tempo around here. So a little bit faster, but here is where we're going to try this now. So here we go. Let me go ahead and count this out loud for you while we do it. Here we go. Ready? 1, 2, ready, and go. 1, and 4, 3 and 4, and 1, and 4, 3 and 4, and 1. Okay? And now, again, just like before, try it a little bit faster if you want to go ahead and rewatch that part. But here is the current tempo that it should be at, which is quarter note equals 144, which we will get to at some point, I promise. So here we go. Ready? This is how fast it'll go in time. Ready? 1, 2, ready, go. 1, and 4, 3 and 4, and 1, and 4, 3 and 4, and 1. All right, so that should give you a pretty good understanding as to how that part goes. And feel free to, again, go back and watch any of those parts and even throw on a metronome for yourself to practice along with on your own time. But more specifically, once you have the counting down, try and add the notes that are printed on the page to that so that you're playing along with the correct rhythm. And it might even be a good thing to potentially take out your instrument and play your part along with my counting of it so that you can line your part up with the counting that I provided for you. So moving on to the next group, this is going to be group 2, which is going to consist of trombone, baritone, tuba, the left hand of the piano, the bass drum, the bass clarinet, the tenor saxophone, and the baritone saxophone. And unlike the previous part, this one is a little bit different, getting a little bit more rhythmically complex the further through this section you go. So let me go ahead and throw the counting up on the screen for you all to see. And I even included some of the dynamic stuff here because I had the time to do that. So just keep some of that stuff in mind while you are also practicing this, because it slowly builds throughout the section until we get to that unison part. So just like before, I'm going to try this at a couple of different tempos, and you are free to follow along with me while I do it. So here's our first tempo that we're going to try this at, which is, again, fairly slow. It's about quarter note equals 80. And this is how your part would sound when playing it at this tempo. So here we go. Ready? 1, 2, ready, and go. 1. 2. And 4, 1. And 3. And 2, 3, 1. And that last one is the downbeat of measure 33. So feel free to go back and try that at that tempo again, but here is now going to be this part at a little bit of a medium tempo. So here we go. Here's your metronome, and let's go give it another shot. Ready? 1, 2, ready, and 1, 2, and 4, 1, and 3, and 2, 3, 1. All right. And if you heard any background noise there, that was my cat. I apologize about that, but feel free to go back and listen to that again. And lastly, we have it at tempo. So here it goes. Ready? 1, 2, ready, and 1, 2, and 4, 1, and 3, and 2, 3, 1. All right. So just be very, very careful about that one, especially with all the space that's in between a lot of these rhythms, because it can make it a little bit tricky to have to wait for as long as you do, sometimes longer than you think, and sometimes not as long as you think it is. So give those a shot, try them with your instrument, and I'll move on to the next group now. Now moving on to the last group in this section, this is going to be the upper woodwind part, consisting of the piccolo, flute, oboe, and clarinet. Now rhythmically, your part isn't necessarily as complicated as some of the other parts, but in terms of actually getting all the notes together, this can help serve as a frame of reference to exactly where everything lines up within the measure, which can help you with the timing of moving your fingers to these 16th note rhythms. So let me go ahead and throw the counting up like I have done, and this way we can all go ahead and follow along together with this, and I will go ahead and do what I did just before with the counting for the rhythm, starting at a very slow tempo. So you got to make sure also that when you're doing this, you are counting your rests appropriately, because you do wait for a long time after you play that first note in measure 25. So here we go. Ready? 1, 2, ready, go. 1. 3E and a 4E and a 1. 2E and a 3E and a 4. 3E and. And it's nothing too crazy, as you can see right here, because there is a bit of resting, but it is important for you to be able to line all that up. So try it again a little bit faster. Here we go. 1, 2, ready, and go. 1. 3E and a 4E and a 1. 2E and a 3E and a 4. 3E and. All right, and then here we go. Final tempo. Ready? 1, 2, ready, go. 1. 3E and a 4E and a 1. 2E and a 3E and a 4. 3E and. All right, so there is your part all together. Feel free to keep practicing those fingering things there, and also make sure that if there's any instance where any of those accidentals would carry through the measure, please make sure you're making note of them. It's mostly chromatic, but it's not 100% chromatic, so be very careful about that part. So now we have the opportunity to move on to the next 4 measures of this part, and only these 4 measures because after those 4 is when we have the entire combined thing that everybody gets together. So the interesting thing about this part, only consisting of trumpet and snare drums. So those of you that are playing this part really have to bring this out because there's a very small amount of you playing it compared to the rest of the ensemble that has all the other parts. And with this, the most important rhythm that you're going to see throughout this section is this grouping of 2 16th notes together. But the good thing is that all of them land on a downbeat, and you're just playing the E of that beat as well, which I'm going to go ahead and put the counting on the screen now so you can see that. So let's go ahead and try and count this together. It's just 4 measures, so follow along, please. So here's the metronome, and here we go. Ready? 1, 2, ready, go. 1, 4E, 2, 4E. 3E, 2E, 4E. Okay? So that's that part in and of itself. Nothing crazy complicated, but you got to be able to make sure that you are playing it out and rhythmically accurate, especially trumpets. Make sure that you're able to tongue those 2 16th notes grouped together very quickly and also articulated. I believe they're both staccato, so be careful about that too. But moving ahead, let's go ahead and try it at a little bit of a quicker tempo. So here we go. Ready, 1, 2, and ready and go. 1, 4E, 2, 4E, 3E, 2E, 4E. All right. So again, very short, but go back and listen to that a couple times if you have to try to get the rhythm and play along. And then lastly, let's go ahead and take it at tempo. Here we go. So 1, 2, ready, go. 1, 4E, 2, 4E, 3E, 2E, 4E. All right, goes by very, very fast. So be sure to take a look at that part because it's very, very important for those few of you that do play this to make sure you're bringing that out and playing really well. Moving on to this next group, there's actually a fair amount of you that play this part right here in measures 33, consisting of bass clarinet, tenor sax, bari sax, trombone, baritone, tuba, and also bass drum that has this. So it's a lot of you, and it's this big underlying booming low sound that you get to have throughout this whole section right here, which is really, really important for you to do. So let's go ahead and put the counting up on the board. This is going to be a little bit trickier, and there's a little bit of a groove you can kind of get to at the end of this, I find, which helps me in particular when counting it. But let's go ahead and see if we can try this together. So here it is at the slow tempo, and let's go ahead and give it a shot. Here we go. Ready? 1, 2, ready, go. 1, and 3 and 4, 2 and 4, 1 and 3, 4 and. And right after that is where we have all the unison things together. Okay? So not too bad. Let's go ahead and try it again. A little bit faster, if we will. But again, if you would like to do the slower part, go back and listen to that. But here we go. Ready? 1, 2, ready, go. 1, and 3 and 4, 2 and 4, 1 and 3, 4 and. All right, and now finally at tempo. Here we go. 1, 2, ready, go. 1, and 3 and 4, 2 and 4, 1 and 3, 4 and. All right, very, very quick. So go back and listen to that again if you have to find all the rhythmic stuff and play along. Lastly, moving on to the final group that we're going to be taking a look at in these measures, this is going to consist of the piccolo, the flute, the oboe, the clarinet, the alto sax, and now also mallet percussion. However, the alto sax part is a little bit different in that there's a downbeat on measure 1 here, and you don't come in with the 16th note stuff until the 3rd measure of what we're looking at right now. So try not to be super confused by that if your part just looks a little bit different. But the thing about this part is that it actually is 100% chromatic, meaning you're not going to be skipping any random notes like you did before. So again, trying to find alternate fingers is very, very important, as well as specifically taking a look at this last little grouping of 2 16ths and an 8th note, because for most of you, the note that you're starting on in that specific spot is going to be an accidental that carried over from the previous grouping of 2 16ths and an 8th. But to throw the counting up on the screen right now, we'll go ahead and count this out together with a metronome. So if you have your stuff up, let's go ahead and give it a shot right now. So here we go. Ready? 1, 2, ready, go. 2E and a 3E and a 4. 1E and a 2E and. 1E and. 3E and. All right. So let's go ahead and give that another shot a little bit quicker. And keep in mind that a lot of this is just getting it under your fingers. But again, that's why we warm up with chromatic scales and all these scale patterns when we do our lessons, because they show up all over the place in music. So that's one of the main reasons why we do that. It's not completely useless and a time waster, I promise. So let's go ahead and give this a shot again, a little bit quicker. Here we go. 1, 2, ready, go. 2E and a 3E and a 4. 1E and a 2E and. 1E and. 3E and. All right. And then for the last time around, let's go ahead and do this at tempo. Here we go. Ready? 1, 2, ready, and go. 2E and a 3E and a 4. 1E and a 2E and. 1E and. 3E and. All right, so it goes by very fast. With practice, I'm sure you'll be able to get it in no time. So we finally made it to the unison part, which happens in measure 37. We all have this exact same thing together, I think with the exception of maybe timpani that has something slightly different. But for the most part, everything that we're looking at right here is going to be in unison, and it's going to be this big, big, loud, booming section of just aggressive staccato playing. And keep in mind that when working on this rhythmically, in addition to just doing the counting, be sure to work on your articulation to make sure you're trying to play this stuff as short and as aggressive as possible. The other thing I'll note about this before we go ahead and count this together is that the last measure of this example that I'm showing you right now differs depending on which instrument you play. Some of you just play the 8th note, some of you play a whole note and hold it, others of you have something completely different if you're in a percussion section, but the most important thing is that you all end up on that downbeat together after this whole section happens. So with the counting up on the screen right now, you can see, just like I mentioned before, that everything is just on a downbeat or an upbeat. It just is very chaotic sometimes, which makes it a little bit tricky to count. But with help here, and hopefully with your own practice, you'll be able to do it in no time. So at the first tempo, let's go ahead and do it together. Ready? 1, 2, and ready, go. 1 and 3, 4, and 1 and 2, 3 and 1, 2 and 3 and 1 and 2, 3 and 4 and 1. Good. All right. So let's go ahead and try it now at the medium tempo, a little bit faster, but you can do it still. Here we go. 1, 2, ready, go. 1 and 3, 4 and 1 and 2, 3 and 1, 2 and 3 and 1 and 2, 3 and 4 and 1. And now for the final tempo. 1, 2, ready, go. 1 and 3, 4 and 1 and 2, 3 and 1, 2 and 3 and 1 and 2, 3 and 4 and 1. All right. And so with that, I know that this should hopefully be enough help to count this last little rhythmic part of it. And now your job as your part is concerned is to go ahead and put your 3 different sections together and try to count them all at once. So be sure to go back, use this video for reference, and hopefully this has been a little bit of a helpful thing to get you all counting some of the rhythms in Fire. So I will see you all in class on Monday. I look forward to it, and hopefully we can run through this piece a little bit more smoothly, especially when we get to this section. Thanks everyone, and I hope you have a good rest of your day.